The alarm clock buzzed, sharp and unforgiving. Ethan groaned, reaching out from under the covers to silence it. His hand fumbled for the snooze button, and for a few precious moments, the world was quiet again. But reality was persistent. The digital numbers glowed on the screen, 6:30 a.m. Time to get up. Time to start another day that looked exactly like the one before it. Dragging himself out of bed, Ethan shuffled toward the bathroom. The mirror reflected the same tired eyes, the same unshaven face, the same dull expression he had been wearing for years. He barely recognized himself anymore. It wasn't just the physical exhaustion, it was something deeper, a numbness that settled in his chest like a permanent fog. By 7:15, he was dressed in his usual attire, a wrinkled button-up and the same pair of slacks he had worn 3 times that week. No one at work would notice, or care. He grabbed a half-eaten protein bar from the counter, shoving it into his mouth as he slipped on his shoes. The morning commute was the worst part of his day. Not because of traffic, though that was bad enough, but because it gave him too much time to think. As he sat behind the wheel, inching forward on the congested highway, his mind wandered. 5 years at the same job, doing the same tasks, talking to the same people. It wasn't that he hated it. It was tolerable. Predictable. Safe. He was making enough money to pay his bills and order takeout on weekends. But was that all life was supposed to be? He wasn't unhappy, exactly. But he wasn't happy either. He just existed. At the office, Ethan went through the motions. His inbox was flooded with emails, most of them pointless threads about scheduling conflicts or meeting reminders. He responded with generic replies, his fingers moving automatically over the keyboard. Meetings blurred together, each one a repetition of the last. His boss, Mr. Callahan, gave him the usual nod of acknowledgement as he passed by, a silent agreement that Ethan was doing just enough to stay under the radar, but nothing impressive enough to stand out. By lunchtime, he sat alone at his desk, eating a microwaved meal while scrolling through his phone. Social media was a highlight reel of people doing better than him, vacations in Greece, engagements, new businesses, fitness transformations. It wasn't that he envied them. He just felt detached. Like he was watching life happen to other people while he stood still. Co-workers chatted at the break room, but Ethan rarely joined. Small talk exhausted him. What was there to say? He hadn't tried anything new in years, hadn't taken a risk, hadn't pursued anything beyond the familiar cycle of work, home, sleep, repeat. Somewhere along the way, he had convinced himself that this was enough. That the dreams he once had, writing, traveling, doing something meaningful, were just childish fantasies. The afternoon dragged on. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, he was already half out the door. The drive home was just as monotonous as the drive to work. Same cars, same roads, same feeling of quiet emptiness. He stopped by a takeout place, picking up dinner for one. The cashier barely made eye contact as she handed him the bag. Ethan muttered a thank you and left. Back at his apartment, he kicked off his shoes, threw his bag on the couch, and sank into his usual spot. The TV flickered on, filling the silence with mindless noise. He scrolled through streaming options but couldn't settle on anything. Every show felt like something he had already seen before, just like his life. He wasn't living, he was replaying the same day over and over again. His phone buzzed. A message from an old friend. Hey man, long time no see. We should catch up soon. Ethan stared at it for a moment before locking the screen and tossing the phone aside. What would they even talk about? He had nothing new to share. He imagined a conversation. So, what's new with you? Nothing. Still at the same job? Yep. Any new hobbies? Nope. He could already feel the disappointment in their tone. He wasn't interesting. He wasn't doing anything worth mentioning. The thought sat heavy in his chest. How had he let things get this way? He used to be passionate, used to have ideas and ambitions. Now he barely had the energy to care. Every day, he told himself that tomorrow would be different, that he would start something new, break the cycle. But tomorrow always became today, and today always felt the same. He rubbed his face, exhaling deeply. Maybe this was just how life worked. Not everyone was meant for greatness. Some people just coasted. And maybe that was okay. Or maybe it wasn't. That night, Ethan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind restless despite his body's exhaustion. The usual routine of scrolling through his phone had done nothing to distract him. The message from his old friend still sat unread, and though he had every opportunity to respond, he didn't. What was there to say? At some point, his eyes drifted shut, but sleep didn't bring relief. Instead, it brought a dream. He was standing in the middle of a long, empty road stretching endlessly in both directions. The sky above him shifted in color, blue, orange, deep purple, time passing in fast motion, though he never moved. The world around him changed, seasons flashing by, but he remained still. Then, in the distance, he saw someone walking toward him. As they got closer, he realized with a jolt that it was himself. But not the version of him lying in bed, dreading another day of the same thing. This version looked stronger, more confident. His posture was different, his eyes sharper. There was something unsettlingly familiar yet foreign about him. Ethan tried to speak, but his other self just stared at him with quiet disappointment. "You're still here," the man finally said. Ethan frowned. "What do you mean? You haven't moved. You've just been watching time pass." He wanted to argue, to say that he had tried, that he wasn't stuck, just waiting for the right moment. But the words wouldn't come. His other self only shook his head before turning and walking away. Ethan tried to follow, but his legs felt like they were encased in concrete. He reached out, but the other version of himself kept getting farther and farther away. The sky darkened, and for the first time in a long while, panic surged in his chest. "Wait," he called. His other self didn't stop. Ethan shot up in bed, gasping. His heart pounded against his ribs, the image from the dream burned into his mind. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. It was just a dream. Just his brain processing the same thoughts he had been avoiding for years. But it didn't feel like just a dream. The next morning, the feeling of unease hadn't left him. He went through his routine as usual, alarm, shower, work clothes, coffee, but everything felt heavier. The walls of his apartment seemed smaller, the fluorescent lights at the office harsher. Even the conversations around him seemed distant, like he was watching his life from behind glass. At lunch, instead of scrolling through his phone, he just sat there, staring at his reflection in the darkened screen. "Still here." The words from the dream echoed in his mind. By the time he got home, something in him had shifted. The weight in his chest had transformed into something sharper. Frustration? Restlessness? He didn't know. He only knew that he couldn't keep doing this. Without thinking too much, he grabbed his laptop and searched for something, anything, that could shake him out of this rut. Articles about breaking habits, videos on personal growth, motivational speeches. They all said similar things: start small. Take action. Stop waiting. One video caught his eye. "A year from now, your life will change. The question is, will it be because of you, or despite you?" He clicked on it. A voice filled the room, calm yet direct. "You have two choices. The first. Stay where you are. It's easy. It's safe. It's familiar. But if you found this video, chances are you've been choosing that option for too long. The second choice is harder. It's uncomfortable. It means change. But here's the truth, a year will pass no matter what. The only difference is who you will be when it does." Ethan sat completely still, the words hitting him harder than he expected. The reason you feel stuck is because you keep watching others change instead of changing yourself. No book, no podcast, no video will do the work for you. You have to decide. You have to start. A lump formed in his throat. How many times had he told himself he'd start tomorrow? How many nights had he gone to bed thinking maybe next week? He had spent years as an observer, watching, waiting, convincing himself that one day something would push him forward. But nothing was coming to save him. You don't need to change everything overnight. Just start. One small step. 1% better every day. That's all it takes. The video ended. The room was silent. Ethan let out a slow breath, his fingers gripping the edges of his laptop. For the first time in years, he felt something that wasn't numbness. He felt ready. The next morning felt different. Ethan still woke up to the blaring sound of his alarm, still rubbed the sleep from his eyes, still felt the weight of habit trying to pull him back under the covers. But something had shifted. He didn't hit snooze. Instead, he sat up and let the silence settle around him. The video from the night before echoed in his mind. 1% better every day. It seemed almost too simple. Too small. But maybe that was the point. As he got ready for work, he told himself he wouldn't overcomplicate things. No grand declarations, no overwhelming goals. Just one thing, one small change. His first step. No more scrolling through social media in the morning. Instead of losing himself in an endless loop of other people's lives, he sat at the kitchen table with his coffee and a notebook he hadn't touched in months. He used to love writing, short stories, random thoughts, anything that let him process the world in his own way. At some point, he had convinced himself he was too busy, too tired. But was that really true? Or had he just let himself stop trying? He flipped open the notebook, pen hovering over the page. Day 1, no social media in the morning. Writing instead. Feels weird. Feels small. But at least I'm doing something. It wasn't profound. It wasn't perfect. But it was his. The drive to work felt less suffocating than usual. His mind wasn't tangled in the usual frustrations, the endless loop of dissatisfaction. It was too focused on something new, what his next small step would be. By lunch, he made another decision. Instead of eating alone at his desk, he joined a group of coworkers in the break room. The conversation was light, weekend plans, bad reality TV, the office coffee being terrible, but for the first time in a long while, he felt present. He wasn't just existing in the background of his own life. That night, he took another step. He turned off the TV earlier than usual, picked up a book that had been collecting dust on his shelf, and read for 30 minutes. Nothing groundbreaking, just a simple commitment to doing something better with his time. Day 1, no social media in the morning. Writing instead. Joined coworkers for lunch. Read before bed instead of TV. Not bad. The next day, he did it again. And the day after that. It wasn't always easy. Some mornings, he still felt the urge to reach for his phone. Some afternoons, he still wanted to retreat into his usual solitude. But he reminded himself of the rule, just 1% better. Not perfect, not drastic, just better. By the end of the first week, he had strung together a series of small victories. Day 7, writing every morning. Feeling more comfortable at work. Less screen time, more reading. Still feels small, but not pointless. A strange thing started happening. The more he committed to tiny improvements, the more he wanted to keep going. Momentum was real. A week of small changes turned into 2. Then 3. He started exercising, not a full workout routine, just a 10-minute walk after work. It was enough. He reached out to an old friend, finally responding to the message he had ignored weeks ago. Hey, sorry for the late reply. I'd love to catch up. Let me know when you're free. It felt good. Simple, but good. His confidence grew in ways he hadn't expected. Work didn't seem as unbearable. His conversations with people felt more natural. His nights felt less wasted. By the end of the month, something became clear. He wasn't stuck anymore. He was moving. And for the first time in years, he believed he could keep going. The first month had been easier than Ethan expected. The small changes, the 1% rule, it had all felt manageable, even exciting. Every day, he could see progress, even if it was minor. But then, the excitement faded. One morning, his alarm went off, and instead of getting up, he hit snooze. Just once, he told himself. But then once turned into twice. Before he knew it, he had overslept by 30 minutes, throwing his whole morning off. No time to write. No time to sit with his coffee and think. He rushed to work, frustrated with himself. It was just one bad morning. But that bad morning bled into the rest of the day. His focus at work was off, his energy low. By the time he got home, he was drained. He told himself he'd read before bed, but instead, he grabbed the remote and let Netflix take over. It was fine, right? One bad day didn't erase all his progress. Except the next day wasn't much better. He skipped his morning writing again. Didn't join his coworkers for lunch. Scrolled on his phone longer than he meant to. A week passed before he even realized what was happening. His old habits were creeping back in. The ease of his old life, the comfort of autopilot, it was calling to him. And the worst part. It would be so easy to give in. No pressure to improve. No struggle to push forward. Just back to the familiar. That night, he sat on the couch, remote in hand, phone on the table beside him. He stared at the blank screen of the TV, but his mind was elsewhere. Was this it? Was this where he gave up? He had been so sure that this time was different. That he had finally found a way forward. But now, he wasn't so sure. Doubt crept in. Maybe he wasn't meant for change. Maybe some people were just destined to live ordinary, unremarkable lives. The thought made his stomach twist. He reached for his notebook, flipping through the pages. The early entries felt like they had been written by someone else, someone more optimistic, more determined. His eyes landed on one line from the first week: still feels small, but not pointless. He exhaled slowly. The past week had felt pointless. Because he had stopped trying. But what if he didn't need to be perfect? What if he just needed to start again? Ethan picked up his pen. Day 37, slipped back into old habits. Almost gave up. But I'm writing this, so I guess that means I haven't. He closed the notebook. Tomorrow, he would try again. The next morning, Ethan woke up before his alarm. It wasn't dramatic, there was no rush of motivation, no cinematic moment of clarity. Just a quiet understanding that he had a choice. He got out of bed. He brewed his coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened his notebook. Day 38, starting again. That was it. No overpromises. No expectations of perfection. Just the decision to keep moving. The shift was subtle at first, but as the days passed, he noticed something. He no longer dreaded the effort it took to improve. The small steps, writing in the morning, taking walks after work, reading instead of scrolling, weren't just habits anymore. They were part of him. And then, something happened that truly tested his progress. One afternoon, his boss called him into a meeting. Ethan assumed it was routine, but as soon as he stepped into the office, he saw the expression on his boss's face. "We're making some changes," she began. "Your position is being restructured." He felt the words hit like a punch. Restructured. A professional way of saying your job is no longer yours. A few months ago, this would have broken him. He would have gone home, spiraled into frustration and self-pity, let the setback confirm all his worst fears about himself. But now, he took a breath. Listened. Asked questions. When he left the office, box of belongings in hand, he felt the weight of it, but he didn't feel lost. For the first time in years, he believed in himself enough to know that this wasn't the end of his story. That night, instead of drowning in self-doubt, he pulled out his notebook. Day 112, lost my job today. It sucks. But I'm not the same person I was a few months ago. I know I'll figure this out. And he did. Over the next few weeks, Ethan pushed himself in ways he never had before. He updated his resume, reached out to contacts, took interviews he wouldn't have had the confidence to take before. And when rejection came, and it did, he didn't let it destroy him. Because he had learned something valuable, failure wasn't the opposite of progress. It was part of it. And then, one morning, an email came in. "We'd love to offer you the position. A job. A new opportunity. A chance to keep moving forward." Ethan stared at the screen, a slow smile spreading across his face. He had done this. Not luck. Not circumstance. Him. Day 130, got the job. I think I finally understand, I was never stuck. I just had to start moving. Ethan stood in front of his bathroom mirror, staring at his reflection. It had been exactly 1 year since the night he watched that video, the one that changed everything. The memory felt both distant and impossibly close. He could still hear the words. "A year from now, your life will change. The only difference is who you will be when it does." Back then, he had been stuck. Waking up each morning with a quiet, suffocating dread. Going through the motions of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. Waiting for something, anything, to happen. And now, he barely recognized the man looking back at him. It wasn't that his life had become perfect. There had been struggles. Doubt. Days when he had felt the pull of old habits. But he had kept moving. Kept improving, little by little, 1% at a time. And that had made all the difference. He reached for his notebook, the same one he had opened on that first morning, and flipped to the last blank page. Day 365, 1 year ago, I was lost. Today, I am not. I am not perfect. I am not finished. But I am moving. And that's enough. Ethan closed the notebook and smiled. This wasn't the end of his journey. It was just the beginning.